Hello and welcome. We're going to be going over today how to get access to the library resources that we have at Jackson State University. So I'm going to begin by going over our connection at the library for ebooks. Let's begin by getting to the library. Easiest way, JSU library. Always type in JSU if you're trying to find something at Jackson State. Otherwise, you're going to get Jackson University or something bizarre like that. Ebooks. Most of the new and more current literature in terms of books that is available as ebooks. So we click on ebooks. We go to the ebook collection and our NetID password, username being our J number. And here we are. And normal search activities are possible. Let's search for enslaved women. Okay. I'll throw history in there. Okay. Here we have An Intimate Economy, Enslaved Women Work in America's Domestic Slave Trade. A pretty good book from 2020. Now, if we look at it, we have here the information about how we can access it. But what you can do is download here. This is if you want the ebook. We either download as a PDF or EPUB. And even though it said there was an error, here we are. We have the book and we can read it. Now, what I often find extremely useful is getting it chapter by chapter. And so, for example, let's say I know that what I need chapter 3 on concubines. I don't really need the rest of it. And so it allows me to simply download that chapter. Once again, it's telling us an error, and once again, it downloaded the chapter. And here we have chapter 3, which I want to read for whatever reason. Other things you need to know about this: to get the citation information, you can either go here, and as always, what you want is Chicago or Turabian. Sometimes people refer to it as Chicago. In some places, it might refer to as Turabian. And you want the notes and bibliography format. So there we have the bibliography. Now notice this is not the format that you're going to need when you're doing footnotes. It's just the bibliography you need for the citation format you need for bibliographies. And then you copy it. It goes to your clipboard and you can copy it to wherever you want it. If you sign in, you create your account here and set it up. This actually makes it easier in a number of ways. It used to be that you could not download ebooks without having signed in. I don't know why it was letting me do it that way today. The other thing about having signed in, so if you have signed in, what you can do is select the books that you're interested in, and then scroll up here. You can save them, so there would be a list that would show them. Or if you're doing something more complicated, you could set up a project. And that would be a set of sources that you are going to use on a particular topic. So you can have multiple projects and therefore keep your materials organized in that way. I think that's the big things about using the ebook collection, but it is actually pretty good. It'll give you a chance to get a fair number of up-to-date and recent publications on your research topics. Not perfect, but pretty good. Okay. Having done that, we next have the databases. And they're all listed here. Now, some of these might be useful for a variety of reasons. I recommend that you check them out depending on what your topic is. But the main ones that I use for research, historical research, and that I think you're likely to use are Academic Search Premier and JSTOR. Here's Academic Search Premier. It's also EBSCOhost, just like the ebook collection. So you would sign in here with the same information as you would sign in on JSU's ebook collection. And you can do the same thing here. You can keep a list, you can keep projects, and that's a way of keeping references that you can use at a later point or come back to when you're needing to get full citations and things like that. So it's a very useful feature. Okay, we're going to do intellectual disability. We're going to do history. And we're going to search for everything. Okay. And the thing about this is, first of all, you want to make sure that the articles that you're looking at are peer-reviewed. That means it's an academic journal. So an academic journal, when people submit papers to it, they send them to other experts in the field. And the other experts are then in charge of reading these articles, checking them, and deciding if they are or are not actually valid, useful, well done. And so if it's a peer-reviewed article, it doesn't mean it's perfect, but it does mean that some people thought that it was worthwhile and worth reading and sharing with people. So that's why when you're doing research, we want you to use articles that are peer-reviewed. Same thing for books. That's why we want you to use books from university publishers for the most part. And if they're not university publishers, there's a few others that are academic presses like Routledge, only some of Macmillan, and some others. Okay. So here's an article that I might find interesting about the Camp Hill movement. It was published in the Bulletin of the History of Medicine. It was peer-reviewed. This is not a journal that we have access to. So I may want to save it. I may want to get the citation for it. So always Chicago. Copy to clipboard. And in this case, since I can't get at it, and I think it might be useful for me, I am going to go over to my email account. I address this to interlibrary ILL request. JSU Library. Please get this article. Okay, I'm not going to complete this because I don't want to share my J number, but you get the picture. You just simply send an email requesting an interlibrary loan to the library. They've got a couple of different email accounts, and request them to get you access to that article or book that you need. Okay, so back here. So that's one possibility. Here's another article that might be interesting to me. But the thing about it is this one is actually available. So I download it. And I also either get the citation like this. A couple of useful things about this this particular version. You can limit your searches to only things that are full text. So that means you're only going to get it if they actually have the article. That can be useful. I recommend not doing that because you can interlibrary loan materials that you need. But let's say you don't have enough time for interlibrary loan, then maybe limiting it to full text would be useful for you. You can also go ahead and limit it always to peer-reviewed. And that would mean that you're not going to get any materials that are not academic and peer-reviewed and acceptable. So I've done that, and now there's not going to be any, newspaper articles or magazine articles that aren't actually useful for an academic research project. So that's Academic Search Premier. Now we go to the remaining source that I want to go over today, and that is JSTOR. Which is not part of EBSCOhost. I actually think it's a little more elegant. You can see here I search it for various things on a regular basis. I'll do my same search here. Intellectual disability. And history. Okay. We see what shows up. And there's a variety of things that show up. Some of which, this one might be useful for me. Listening to people with intellectual disabilities about institutions. And so it's the sort of the new ways of approaching history of institutions. This one I will actually download. Or you could, for example, copy, depending on how you approach it. Okay, couple of things here. Just like on Academic Search Premier, some of these articles you don't have access to on JSTOR. So once again, you may have to you may have to interlibrary loan the article that you want. They also have both journal articles and book chapters available. So you've got different types of materials, and they've got other materials as well. One thing that's very useful for narrowing down your searches is you can scroll like this, and then you can say history. And so that restricts it to things that were actually written by historians and therefore more directly useful. Something that is very useful about this is older materials are in this collection. So let's say I am interested in the history of Black education. The Journal of Negro Education. Okay? But, and it was a long time that it went on. But if I wanted to, I could simply look at the journal itself Journal of Negro Education. And I could go back to the 1930s and see what they were writing about in 1932. The South's Negro Teaching Force. The accreditation of the Negro High School. Intelligence quotients of Negro children. And so on. And Education and Work by W.B. Du Bois, which might be actually interesting, depending on what you're learning about, to get the idea of what a Black intellectual, a leading Black intellectual of the time, has to say about the question of race and education. So, JSTOR is useful for up-to-date scholarship, but it's also useful for these older journals. And if you're doing historical research, often the journals and articles that were published at the time that you're researching can give you good information, like in this case. So that is JSTOR. You can once again register. That will allow you to save your material and access it. And so that's a useful thing to do as well. So that is my orientation to the research resources of Jackson State University.